Engine 1 from Car 1. Car 1's on scene at Subin Command. Give me a CAN report.
Buddy, this is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the CAN Report. Got another program with you. I got a really amazing guest today. I think pretty much everybody knows who this man is. If you don't, you live under a rock. Meet Dennis Reilly, Chief Reilly. He has been making his rounds all over the map, spreading the good word, spreading his wealth and knowledge to all of us, really helping out all generations in the fire service. I am so thrilled to have you on today, Chief. Thank you so much for being on the CAN Report.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. I enjoy the podcast. I enjoy talking shop. I enjoy sharing my experiences to try to help people be a little bit better at the best job on the face of the earth. So it's a very humbling thing for basically a small town guy like me to be given such a voice and such a platform and such an opportunity. So thank you so much for
Absolutely,
having
Chief.
me on.
I mean, we're both small town people then. I mean, again, as I say it many times, I'm just a schmuck from Milford, New Hampshire. Nobody really knows who I am, and I'm happy to keep it that way. I'm just happy to talk to people like you who really love the job. I mean, everyone knows who you are, but I'm going to give a brief description of your bio real quick so we can get into it. Chief Reilly is a 50-year fire service veteran. Retired fire chief and owner of the First Line Fire Service Training Company, LLC. The chief has served as the chief in Pittsburg, Kansas, and Sunrise Beach, Missouri, an assistant in North Carolina and California, and retired as a battalion chief in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. During his time in New Jersey, Chief became one of the original members of the New Jersey Urban Search and Rescue Task Force and made several deployments, including to New York City as part of the response of the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Chief Reilly holds a master's degree in public administration from Penn State University, and is a CFO, an accomplished author and lecturer. Chief Reilly has spoken at various events to include the Command Officers Boot Camp, the Orlando Fire Conference, the Atlanta Metro Fire Conference, the Louisiana Instructors in Firefighting Training Conference, and the Culture and Craft Seminar. Outside of his fire service career, Chief is a U.S. Army veteran, having served in Iraq during the Operation Desert Storm from 2010. The Chief worked as an independent contractor providing protective services to several government clients in Iraq and Afghanistan. Chief Reilly has been married to his wife, Ann, for 39 years. They have 2 adult children and 3 grandchildren. Leave anything out, Chief?
I'm tired just listening to that. No, thank you, man. Thank you for that. I always have some trepidation when I put my bio out there, because everything that I try to do really isn't about me. It's about the people I try to connect with. And I just offer my bio as a way for everybody to judge. Does what I say have some credibility? And we all know, I mean, there's folks out there, on the lecture circuit, whatever, they got a fancy PowerPoint, they're well spoken, but when you really peel the onion back, they don't have the experience to go along with what they're teaching. And that's why Chief, I put my bio out there. It's not about
you
me.
Earned
it's
it though,
about
Chief.
letting people
you have a right to
judge.
brag about it. I mean, you earned that. I mean, that's not fluff. That's real life. That's real shit right there. And you earned it. I mean, the time you served protecting our country, that's bragging rights right there. I don't think anyone would disagree or argue that one right there, right? So thank you so much. Again, it's an extreme honor. Many people might not know who you are in the state of New Hampshire. We have a lot of great fire service personnel here, but sometimes it's hard for people to get outside of this Granite State. A lot of of us don't know of a lot of the conferences. It's usually word of mouth up here. Having you on hopefully will ignite that passion for people to come visit you and the other conferences that you attend and that you're guests of, and to meet you in person. Because when we first got to meet in person, you and I were sitting in a Uber. We were going to it was Dadgum, right? Yeah, I think it was Dadgum. And you, me, your wife, and my buddy Brian Rondu, we grabbed an Uber together, and we didn't really know who each other was. I've come across from other conferences. I've crossed paths before with you at CFT. We just literally just crossed paths, and we're at the same bar. But this was the first time that you and I actually got to sit in a car and shoot the shit for about 15-20 minutes talking about fire service stuff and where we came from. And also we had the same, we lived in the same area, probably not the same times, but I spent a brief history in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My mother lived there, and she worked in the government, and she was stationed in the area of Cherry Hill. So just small worlds, but it really, really is.
It is.
So you've been around the map teaching, you've been around the map, spreading the good word. So we talk about building a healthy firehouse culture. We'll step on that real quick. I think there'll be a good number one agenda there. What are your thoughts? What do you do to do that?
So I think it's one of the most important things that we need to concentrate on, because 100%, absolutely, and I've seen this for 5 decades, if you have a dysfunctional firehouse, you're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
dysfunctional fire ground. All the people that say, hey, don't worry about it, boss. When the bell is hit, I'm all in. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. And the people who say that succeed on the fire ground by luck, not by skill, not by anything else. They just get lucky. And, one of the things that I've always said is that luck really destroys competence. We get lucky. We didn't do things quite right. It didn't go really the way it should have, but we got lucky. And in the long run, it worked out. So then we go out and we do it again, same thing, same way. And it's just this reinforcing behavior. And because we don't have a good culture in the firehouse, we continue to repeat these marginal behaviors until all of a sudden, one day, as Rob Ramirez says, the dominoes line up. And once they fall, you're not stopping them. So I think we have to really kind of look at the firehouse. And there's a couple things that, I talk about. I think that every firehouse, or in the military term, every command. So when I was a company officer, when I was a battalion chief, when I was an ops chief, I had a group that I was in charge of. And I would always define the values for my command that supported the organization's core values. And as a fire chief, I've written organization core values. I think they're very, very important. But I think the subordinate commanders need to identify what's the values of their firehouse that in turn support the organization's core values. And when you're very clear, very honest, very upfront about that with people, they know what to expect. They know what they'll be judged on. They know what they're going to be held accountable to. And I think that's where you start building a good culture. And I tell people, there's 4 things that I always go back to. Number 1 is trust. And when I talk to people about trust, I tell them that I have to earn your trust, because at some point in time, I'm going to tell you to do some really sketchy things, because that's what the fire ground is. If you don't trust me, are you going to be willing to execute on what I tell you? So trust is number 1. If I'm going to work hard to earn your trust, then you got to earn mine. So trust goes both ways. We don't succeed if we don't trust each other. The second thing I talk about is tactical excellence. How can we go to a life and death situation and not be excellent in the skills we need to employ to mitigate that situation? So we've got to be tactically excellent, and that's all there is to it. I mean, if my house is on fire, if my family's in danger, I don't want the third string showing up. I want the best out there. So if that's my expectation, I have a moral obligation to provide that to the people I serve. So we're going to talk about tactical excellence. We're going to have our basic skills. We're going to drill on them. We're going to work on them. We're going to be open to coaching and counseling. I want you to evaluate me. I'm going to evaluate you. I'm going to give you the feedback you need to get better. You need to be able to give me the feedback I need to be able to function better as your supervisor. So tactical excellence is it. Number 3, team before self. And I say this all the time. If you want to be the Lone Ranger, go take the test for the cops. They hire all the time. Okay. They're out there giving bonuses. We have got to work as a team. And I tell people, when you have somebody new come into your firehouse, to your command, your platoon, your whatever, Ask them 2 questions. Have you ever played team sports, and have you ever been in the military? And a lot of people who come to your command are going to say, "No, I wasn't an athlete, man. I was on the chess team, or I was on this, but I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't on the football team. I wasn't on the soccer team. I wasn't on the basketball team. And no, I haven't been in the military." So I think it is very important for us to be successful on the fire ground to function in a team environment. Well, if these people that are coming to your command have never operated in a team environment, who's responsible for teaching them how to interact in a team environment? It's us, those
Right.
who are there. So we get these new people, and this guy isn't working out. He's this, he's that. She's lazy. She doesn't understand. How the hell can we blame them? They've never been in a team environment. It's not
Right.
their fault. So we have got to show them the ways of being a good team member. And when they come through the door first day and I talk to them about this, I ask them, hey, team before self. Team is everything. Team is where we win the fight. If we lose the fight, people get hurt, people die. Okay, so we're going to win the fight. But to win the fight, we got to be good team members. Do you understand that? Do you realize what that entitles? And the fourth thing is hard work. Man, if you're coming here and your expectations are you're going to spend your days in the recliner watching TV, waiting for the bells to hit, man, you're not going to make it. Not in my command. Okay. And I try, I don't want to be a slave driver, but I'll be honest with you. Every command I've ever been in, every command that I've ever overseen, there's been nights where we didn't eat dinner until 8 o'clock at night. That's
Mhm.
kind of the way it goes, I mean, do we grab something quick? Yeah. But when work's got to be done,
Right.
work's got to be done. There were days where I told the guys, 2 o'clock, knock off, man. Take a nap, do whatever. But we're going to go out at 8 o'clock tonight, and we're going to train from 8 to 10, because the operational environment at night is significantly different than the operational
I tell you
environment
what, man,
during the daytime.
I love doing
Vision.
night ops. Honestly, I love being being in New
Yeah.
Hampshire, right? Like things slow down a bit in New Hampshire, during the winter time, right? It's just
Yeah.
we can't flow a lot of water,
Sure.
but man, when the summertime comes, if I can get some evening work in, that there's usually less bugs. The humidity's cut. It's just a beautiful night. You build up a nice sweat. It's you get some good evening reps in. Like you said, you're mastering the basics. You're putting in work, but really it's that teamwork. And like you were just saying, it's I think it has a different environment when you do it for fun, right? I'm a strong proponent of doing some work in the evening. And if we ran ragged all day, then yeah, you're not going to get by. And that's for the boss to say, you know what, we're not going to do that tonight because you guys have been working your ass off. And that builds respect. That shows that you care about your crew. But man, if you had an easy enough day and like, hey, you know what, we missed our window for the afternoon to throw ladders or stretch a line. What do you guys say we do this at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night so we can see what it's like doing it in the dark, and like you said, it's a completely different avenue that you're taking when you're doing stuff in the evening or at night. And it's fun. I absolutely love it. It just feels different doing it in the evening and doing it at night. You get a whole different environment, different feel. And I really think it builds that teamwork up when you're working hard at night, put in the work of either a workout or just doing basic firefighter mechanics of stretching lines, throwing ladders, just something just to keep you sharp. And then you go back to the house and you clean up and you have a good night.
Yeah. If you go into your record management system and did a query on when do the runs occur, a lot of runs occur at night. So if that's when the runs are occurring, and then we know this from statistics and data, we know a lot of fires occur in the overnight hours. Well, if we're not training in the dark, because depth perception changes, vision acuity changes, sound carries different, all those things. If we're not preparing ourselves, if we're not preparing ourselves for that environment, how do we expect to be able to perform in it? So that's what I tell my folks. And there were people in my organizations that did everything they could to stay out of my command. because they knew I valued these four things. And I say this, I have no problem whatsoever at all saying this. Good, we didn't want them. Okay. They're not going to fit in. We have these four things that we value, that we spend time every day working on. And if you don't want to buy into it, when I was in Cherry Hill, I mean, we had 6 stations and 3 shifts. So I would tell guys, hey, listen, man, there's 17 other firehouses you can go work at, man. You don't have to stay here. You can put in for a transfer, and I will hand carry your papers up to the boss. And I got to the point where me and the boss were pretty tight. So, if I told the boss, hey, look, man, this guy's got to go, there's a good chance that they would go. Sometimes I had to keep them, and, that's okay. I'll keep them, but it is what it is. And if you look at those, do you look at those four things I'm asking for? Am I really asking for that much?
Yeah.
I mean, really? Am I really, really asking for that much? I don't think so. So I think that's one part of building that firehouse culture.
When you talked about core values and building those, who has that buy-in? Who makes those? Like, you can build the core values, and your administration can build those and present it to the men and say, core values, follow them. Here you go. But if they don't believe in them, if they don't have a say in it, because again, ultimately it's the end user, how do you make them follow something that to them think it's beneath them or they don't agree to?
Well, as a fire chief, I wrote them. I mean, I made a decision that, listen, this is what we are going to stand for. This is what's going to guide us. And at the end of the day, I told him, I said, listen, man, I'm the fire chief. I'm the boss. So I don't know. I'm not saying that was the best way to do it, but I'm saying that's the way I did it. Now, with that being said, we ran our own recruit academy from day one. I mean, we would actually bring them in Friday night prior to the start of recruit academy, and we would brief them on this stuff. And then we gave them a little card that had our core values, had the logo on one side, and then the 3 core values and definitions on the other side. Say, hey, carry this card with you at all times. You're accountable for that. In the weekly quizzes, they had word for word, they had to define those core values: courage, commitment, and honor. We took them from the Marine Corps and modified them to fit us. That was always on their weekly quizzes. They had to. The people we brought into the academy to train and mentor these people, they bought into it. There were some people in the organization that really didn't. I mean, I get that. We were big enough where we were going to have that. But we didn't bring those people to the training academy. When the people came out of the academy, we were very selective about where we sent them. We sent them to firehouses with officers who were in tune with this stuff. So over the course of time, as these people mature in the organization, that's their frame of reference. That's what they're exposed to. That's what they know. These, the people that really bought into this tended to be the people who promoted. When you put these like-minded people together in this firehouse that believes in all this stuff, okay, they bond together. They become very strong, so that the squeaky wheel actually becomes the outsider. And you can't do away with them altogether. Okay. But you limit the influence that they have, because most of the people in the organization have been brought up in this environment. This is what they know. This is what they believe. This is what we embody. This is when we talk to people. This is what we talk about. And it's courage, commitment, and honor. Once again, argue with me on that. Courage isn't important. Really? Okay, that's fine. Commitment isn't important. Okay, that's what you believe. You think you're going to be good at this job without having some commitment? Now, commitment varies from an individual to an individual. Listen, if you come and you give me a solid 24 hours, and it always starts with being a decent person, you're a good employee, you got solid skills. Hey, listen, if you just do your shifts and go home, that's okay, man. That's okay. I'm interested in the 24 hours you spend
Yeah.
here in the firehouse. So, if you get that right, that's good. And all these things start to feed off of each other. And over the course of time, they just grow in momentum. And that's the way it's worked for me. I'm not saying it's
Sure.
the only way, and I'm not saying it's the way. I'm saying it is
Absolutely.
a way. Maybe you're better off based on the organization and whatever is to get everybody together and poll everybody and try to build this that way. I mean, in the organizations that I had influence in terms of defining core values, I was it was a new organization and we were just starting out, or it was a very small organization and I just had the influence and I said, listen, this is what we're
Mhm.
going to do. But but I explain
Yeah.
the why. Courage. That physical, mental strength to do what is right and necessary. Guys, we're going to go to a fire one of these days, and somebody's going to be outside screaming that somebody in that house is trapped. Tell me we don't have to. Tell me courage isn't a crucial element for us to be successful in that event. But if we just wait for the event to happen, now we're dependent on luck. So everything we do, we want to talk about courage, that courage to stand up, that courage to do the right thing, that courage to be willing to be uncomfortable in training because we know the fire ground is an uncomfortable place. Commitment, honor. You know what? Listen, I'm going to send I'm going to send 4 guys to an EMS call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to put their hands on a naked 16-year-old girl who's having a seizure. Honor's not
Right.
important. Being able to put people in that situation and know that they're going to do the right thing. I mean, how can that not be important? And I have found when you sit down and have these conversations with people, some people blow it off. Yeah, but the people who we really want to connect with, who are the future of the organization, who are the folks who are going to be the leaders, they'll say, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's important. So that was
I
my
love it.
take on it.
So we kind of touched on setting expectations, what to focus on. We'll jump into that to the other part of it, the fitness and the fire service. You're always working out. You are just always moving. Like your batteries, they're always charged.
Most times.
Were you always like that? Did you always have that amazing amount of energy, just constantly working out, staying fit? I mean, you're obviously still in shape now. Was it always that case where did you have a regiment back in your 30s up until now? Was it always stay that way?
Yeah.
Did you start tweaking your workouts, and did you also have a regiment or a workout requirement when you were a chief officer or a line officer?
So you got like a half a dozen questions there.
I shot a lot at you.
What? Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's fine. Did I have an absolute requirement? No, I wasn't in an environment where I could put
Okay.
that in play. There's factors, there's, collective bargaining agreements, there's city hall,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole bunch of things that impact that. So, no, I didn't, but I always did. I always made sure that I trained, and I trained in the firehouse not to try to show off, but to try to set that example. So, I'd come in early in the morning and I'd do some gear PT. I came in, I would always come in early. I'd go out and run, I'd lift weights, I'd do whatever. So I'm showing everybody, listen, my expectation is that you can perform on the fire ground. That's my expectation. I'm not going to tell you got to be able to do 50 push-ups or run them. My expectation is that you need to be able to perform on the fire ground. For me, Dennis, if I don't train the way that I do, I can't do that stuff. I can't perform on the fire ground. I mean, I was a battalion chief in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We had a fire on the 14th floor of a high rise. Smoke Smoke had migrated into the elevator shafts. We couldn't use the elevators, and the chief assigned me as Division 14 supervisor. So as a chief, in turnout gear, with an air pack, I got to climb 14 flights of stairs. And when I get to the 14th floor, I got to operate as a division group supervisor. Well, how am I going to do that if I don't train on a regular basis? That's just the way I look at things. Those are the stories that I share. Those are the examples that I try to set. And I do hold people accountable to performance on the fire ground. It's just that simple. If you can't perform, I mean, if you're that first due engine at this fire on the 14th floor and you get seven flights and you're gassed and you can't make it to the fire floor, it's like, what are you doing, bro? We got to have some serious conversations. And oh, by the way, that 14-story high rise didn't get dropped on that lot overnight. That thing's been here for 20 years. You've driven by that building 4 or 5 times every day that you work. We talk about high-rise firefighting. We talk about the inability to use elevators if smoke is. Yeah, I mean, that's part of our training. We tell people if smoke has migrated into the shaft of the elevator, and a 14-story building we know is a traction motor elevator with all the machinery on the top, and there's holes on the top of the shaft that the cables pass through, because we take guys for tours and we take them up there and we show them all this stuff. Smoke's going to rise. It's going to end up in the penthouse. Carbon's going to deposit on the contacts of the switchboard. And now the elevator will not necessarily respond correctly to fireman's control. So if that's the case, you got to walk the stairs.
Now, when you would do your workouts and you'd be in the bay and starting that in the morning, would they follow suit? Would anybody go, hey, Chief, I want to join you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And would that start that culture?
Yeah. Some guys would. That's fine. A lot of times I would get in real early and I'd be finishing up, at shift change so I could get into the office and have an hour where I could sort through the stuff. But, I just, some guys would jump on it. Some guys, we train together, some guys. When you set those expectations and you model those behaviors, it's easy to get people to kind of buy in. And even if they don't join me, they do stuff on their own. They realize that, hey, listen, this is important. This is serious. And quite honestly, there's a lot of eyes watching, and if I come up short, people are going to see it. So that was one of the things. And the last part of your question is, have I changed stuff? Man, absolutely, man. I am at 67 years old. I am not doing the same things I did when I was 30. But
because you just had a procedure done, right? Did you have a knee surgery or? Oh,
I had problems with my knee and I had problems with my shoulder.
So you've had to cater your workouts.
Yeah. But I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. You got to tweak things. There's some things that I look at. I spend a little more time stretching on flexibility and mobility. But I still run. I still row, man. I still do gear workouts. I still do kettlebell stuff. I try to mix it up a little bit. But I ran this morning, and I ran about 2 miles, and I'm running about 11:30 a mile. It's like, it's really kind of slow, because when I was in my fees, I was running 7-minute miles in a 10K. But I'm not in my 30s anymore. I'm closing in on 70. But I'm out running
That's
2
still
miles
impressive,
a day,
Chief.
so
That's
I'm
very
kind of happy
impressive.
with it.
Do you think that with social media now, it's made the workouts more popular? That we have more of an influence in our palm of our hand. I think we've done a really good job with. Social media can be a pro and a con, right? And I think that with the fitness status, I think it's become such a positive thing for the social media in the fire service world. There are so many people that have inspired others to get in shape and using the platform to show workout regimes, and show how to get yourself in shape. And I mean, from ice baths to, the stretches to how to do certain gears and certain workouts in gear. I mean, man, years ago, we didn't have that. You had to kind of just cater your own, and you didn't know really where to start. But now, if anyone's ever confused of where to start, it's literally, you can just look it up and it's there. And we have such great people that are leading the way for change in the fire service when it comes down to fitness. Hard Knocks Mark there, and Logan Broberg, and prepared. We have Julian Soriano. These guys are really doing amazing things to help lead the way. Anthony Spear out of Massachusetts. They're just really doing such a great job of showing what we can do for working out, and we don't have to try to figure out what to do. Yeah. And I think we've really turned a positive for that. And I think before, many years ago, like that, again, I don't think a lot of people did the gear workouts like we do now. Do you think that social media this generation has turned that wheel to make it more popular to work out in gear as it was maybe 20 years ago? Because I wasn't on 20 years ago. So was that different for you?
It's absolutely changed. I think that we are in a much better place. And there's something I want to add about this too. And I'm friends with Marcos and a lot of these people that you just mentioned. I'm friends with them. It's easy to watch their videos and be intimidated. Say, man, that guy's just a beast. I can never do that. But to a man, every one of those guys will say, it doesn't really matter how much you do.
Doing it. Yeah.
As long as you're doing something. Okay. As long as you're doing something. So if you're watching these things and you're intimidated by them, don't be intimidated. Just start doing something. Just use that as a goal. And I talked about this in one of my lives about, lifestyle changes versus New Year's resolutions. So, everybody makes these New Year's resolutions. January the 2nd, you can't get into the gym if you walk sideways. April the 1st, there's dust gathering on the machines. Okay. What I say is commit to making simple lifestyle changes. So, if you're not, really into fitness, just commit to walking a half an hour after lunch or after dinner. I wear a Garmin watch and I wear an Oura ring. Mm-hmm. Track your steps. Set a goal. I want to get 8,000 steps in a day, every day. No excuses, and then just start doing that. And then all of a sudden you say, well, 8,000 really isn't all that hard. We'll get 9,000 or get 8,500. And you can make these incremental changes. And the people like Marcos and John Spear and Jimmy Mose, all these guys are out there just saying, hey, man, just do something. Don't think that you're going to get to a level overnight. Just do something, just little by little by little. I think one of the mistakes that people make is they see this and they just say, all right, well, I gotta do a 45-minute gear workout, man. I gotta do 50 up downs. I gotta do this stuff. And they wake up the next morning and they can't move because they're so sore and they lose the whole program. It's like, man, I always say this about everything. Play the long game. Don't try to correct 15 years of inactivity in a week. It's not going to happen. Just take these, small nibbles here and again and again and again. And it adds up over time. And do 5 push-ups a day. If you do 5 push-ups a day, every day, okay, no excuses, every day for a month, tell me how much stronger you feel at the end of the month.
100%, Chief.
And I think, and that's the key to tactical fitness. And I've talked about tactical fitness for 30 years. One of the keys in tactical fitness is consistency over time. And the other benefit of it is, so I was traveling a lot like 2 weeks ago. I had a couple commitments. I was actually traveling from one commitment to another commitment. I landed at an airport, walked across the terminal, got on another plane. And in the interim, I got a real bad sinus infection. So I was sick. So I didn't do anything. I really just didn't do anything except survive for a week. So then I start, training again. And within 3 days, I'm right back to where I was before I was sick because I've been training
Yeah.
for decades. And when the little curveballs in life come, it's like, all right, no problem. A week, maybe two, do you lose a little capability? Yeah, you lose a little, but it comes back so quickly. So commit to making a lifestyle change and commit to consistency over time. Don't worry about what I do, worry about what you can do. And if you work to improve what you can do little by little, you'll get to any one of us. You'll get to the point where you're doing what I do. I mean, anybody can do what Marcos does if we just commit to taking the long
100%.
game. So
And
that's my
you
take
nailed it
on
right
it.
there too, Chief, is you got to do it for you. If you're trying to do it for other people,
Yeah.
it's not real.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be committed to it. You got to make that sacrifice. And it comes down to healthy eating too, right? Like it's not just the working out. You can work out all day long, but if you don't eat right, you're just pissing in the wind. You got to commit to a healthy diet. You got to commit to working out, and you got to do it for you. That's what it comes down to. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family, right? The numbers are out there, heart attacks, cancer, things like that. It's out there. And we're losing a lot of guys because of heart attacks, because of cardiac issues. And we got to take care of ourselves. And that comes down to, again, healthy eating, healthy living, and committing to an exercise plan. And I love it, Chief. I mean, you're absolutely right. And those guys preach it too. Like, just move your body, get the heart rate going. You don't have to break any records. You're not competing with these guys that you see on the internet. This is just, they make these plans and they do these videos as just a guide for us and for people out there who may be lost in working out. And there's just do it to be healthy, do it for your crew, do it for, when you have to walk up 14 flights of stairs, that you're not going to be surprised anymore, that you're ready to do it and that you're doing it in gear. I think, again, we're so worried about working out in our gear that some people don't do it enough. And then when they have to actually do work in their gear, they're almost shocked by it because they haven't put their gear on. And, if you're on a slow house, it could be like a week, and you haven't put your gear on, then it's time to go to work and you're kind of shocked by the weight and the heat of it. And you got to be constant and know that it's going to suck, and work out in your gear and be prepared to sweat in that. And like we always say, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and working out's going to make it that way. So you can break through that barrier, break through that wall. When you start feeling like your lungs are bleeding, you can push through a little bit more and give us a little bit more that we need on the fire ground. Absolutely, Chief.
So, I've gotten some heat from people on social media about working out in gear because of PFAS. And I'm going to talk about this for just a second. The first thing is, people bash me about it. Well, I got news for you, assholes. I understand the occupational cancer thing because I lost a very close friend of mine who actually worked for me under my command. He was 47 years old when he retired. He died within 14 months. And in the last month or two of his life, you couldn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Cancer. So I understand occupational cancer. I've lost friends to occupational cancer. Yeah. So I get it. I'm not minimizing that in the least bit. When I train in gear, I've got a set of gear that I take up to the firehouse, run through the extractor, and it's the only thing that I use that gear for. I don't fight fire in it. I use it for PT. When I get done training, I take a shower. Now, am I exposing myself to PFAS? Maybe. Okay. But how many firehouses have got a jacked up frying pan in them? There's as much PFAS in that jacked up frying pan as there is in the gear, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my opinion, every firehouse I've ever been in has got the black spatula that's kind of peeling off on the very end. Well, there's PFAS there. If you're drinking water out of a plastic water bottle, there you go. And let me go in and run my hand across the dashboard of your cab. And when it comes back black, well, there's an issue too. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned about cancer, especially, with PFAS exposure from our turnout gear. I'm not saying that I don't care about that. I think about it, but at some point in time, I've made a decision that the risk that I'm exposing myself to by doing what I do is worth the benefits that I get out of it. When I give lectures, man, I ask people, how many people drove here today in a car? Everybody. Well, 50,000 people die in motor vehicle accidents every year in this country. There is some point in time where we cannot eliminate risk. We
Yeah.
can manage risk. And that's why I have a separate set of gear that I use. That's why I take it up and I run it through the extractor. That's why I take a shower afterwards. I do everything that I can. But if I'm not prepared for the bad things that can happen to me on the fire ground, I can limit risk in one category, but now I got risk
Yeah.
in another category. So what am I supposed to do? I was doing some live fire training. I was myself and a good friend of mine. We were running the hoarder station. So I'm inside the can, and the companies aren't flowing water. Well, I came out. I mean, I almost got burned up. I mean, my face piece is all glazed over. My turnout gear is just firmly loaded. I'm not saying that doing PT in gear, helped me on that
Sure.
particular moment, but I spent a lot of time in gear. I'm comfortable in my gear. I know what it feels like. I know, I get a feeling when things aren't quite right. And I'm saying, in this particular example I'm talking about, I'm laying there, I'm yelling at these guys, start flowing water, start flowing water. They don't do it. And I just had this feeling like, man, I need to go. And I was right by the door. Well, when I came out, the guy I'm working with, I mean, I saw the look on his face like, what's wrong? Man, my gear's all loaded. My face piece is starting to glaze over. So for me, I'm saying that the time that I spend in gear gave me a little bit of knowledge at that split second, because had I stayed in there much longer,
Yeah.
I mean, it got really gnarly. And I didn't realize how gnarly it got. And I'm not saying that because that's what I think. I'm, the guy I'm working with who is truly, a top-notch instructor, very knowledgeable. So, man, that was pretty crappy in there, Dennis. Well, all this time I spent in gear, I think, helped me
Sure.
prepare for that moment. So that's my take on it. And you know what? I'm not telling anybody to train in gear. I mean, I'm telling you to think about everything that I said and then make that decision for yourself. What is the best decision
Well,
for my
Chief, and you're absolutely right.
what's
But
the
I guess I was just about to say is that it's been bothering me lately is that honestly, we didn't ask your opinion. I guess when it comes down to it, right? Like when we post our workouts and if we're doing it in gear, we're hoping that we can help others by showing what we're doing and inspire and motivate and give them ideas to do on their own. We're not asking you to shit on us. We're not asking you for your opinion of what is bad or what is good, man. Because I tell you, Chief, like I posted a video of one of my lieutenants. We're teaching one of our recruits how to move downstairs, and it was actually getting pretty miffed about it because it was a really good educational video, and he was doing a fantastic job teaching us. So I recorded it. He was teaching the new guys how to move and flow, and it was a great learning environment. So I posted it to my page to teach others. Like here's a tip, right? Here's a trick of how to do this. And this guy posted, that's a horrible drill. Train like you fight, and you're not wearing a pack, you're not on air, and all this bullshit. Is like, dude, one, I didn't ask your opinion. Two, we're teaching new people. So these new people, they're not going to be able to do it in packs and on air because they don't know how to move yet on packs and on air, especially with that kind of technique. And if my lieutenant's trying to teach them how to do this on air, how is he going to relay that message if he's trying to talk to them while on air? And it just kept other people were chiming in with these negative comments. And it's the same thing with working out. Oh, what about cancer? You're wearing a gear. I get you. We're not morons. We're pretty educated, and we know the risks that we take. We know we're making sure that we're safe and we're doing our proper due diligence to clean up after ourselves and wear clean gear. But we didn't ask your opinion. And I know that sounds harsh to a lot of people out there, but we're people too. And what we do, we're putting things out there for people to help them. And it does put a target on our back, but we're showing something that we enjoy. We enjoy working out. We enjoy working out in gear because we want to be prepared. We're showing it to others, like, here are some ideas and this is how I move. I'm not asking you to shit on this. I'm asking you to just watch. And if you don't want to watch it, and if you don't want to follow, you can click that unfollow button and go watch something else. Right? That's what drives me crazy.
Exactly.
And I know it drives you crazy.
Exactly.
And I just, that's what gets me off on this tangent, is that I'm trying to bring something good. You're trying to bring something good. All these guys and girls are out there just doing something to up our status, or not the status, up the service, up the fire service, right? And bringing something to the masses. And when you got people just shit on the fact, like you just said, like, here you are working on a gear and you have the experience and knowledge, and you've been through some traumatic events where you've lost people to cancer. You know what's going on. And to have people from the outside shit on you for doing something like that, it's pretty disheartening.
Yeah. So, I just look at it quick. I mean, I've gotten to the point, and I've had it happen so much, I'm just like, whatever. So I put something on, I did something about radio straps. I'm a real firm believer in wearing a radio strap, wearing it underneath your coat, bringing the mic out. So this guy, he gets on there and he just, now I link the Fairfax study
Sure.
to the post. So the study's right there. So this guy starts going on, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been using the radio pocket for 20 years. And if what you say is correct, then my radio should have fallen out of my pocket a half a dozen times. And it never did. All right, bro. So I've been driving a car now I'm 66. I started driving a car when I was 16. So what, I've been driving a car for 50 years, right? I've never been in an accident. So why should I bother using my seatbelt? It's the same. It's the same logic. I'm not telling you to use that. You have 100%. To use a radio strap. I'm giving you a suggestion, and I'm giving you the data that my opinion has been drawn from. Another guy starts going on. He's, I follow his Facebook, I follow him back to his Facebook page, and his tagline is, I'm a very intelligent individual and I don't care what anybody else says. All right, click, whatever. So he's trying to spar with me. And I used to spar with people. I don't
honestly,
waste my time
it's a tireless fight.
But
you don't need to do it.
Yeah. I asked him like 3 times, well, he's arguing with all the points that I make. I said, well, did you read the study?
Yeah.
Nothing. Did you read the study? It's like, okay, Dennis is wrong. Okay. But I want you to call the Fairfax County Fire Department. 1,000 guys in uniform. Call guys like Dan Shaw and tell Dan that he's wrong. Okay. From mom's basement while you're, playing video games, watching, a marathon on TV Land of the 18. Go ahead and engage with Dan Shaw at this level. 100%. See where you're going to get it.
You can't waste the energy on it, Chief, and I agree 100%. We touch on the like to talk about how people mess up stress inoculation. That's a curious question or topic that we were going to talk about. So what's your takes on that?
So I think, let's go back and talk about the video that you posted, right? Skill acquisition has to happen before stress 100%. Inoculation. If we're teaching people how to do stuff, you can't put them in a hyper stressful situation because all they're going to do is shut down and just try to survive. So for stress inoculation to work, we've got to have that skill developed. And then we introduce low levels of stress and we build it up and we build it up and we build it up. It's a long process to get people to that high functioning level in high threat, high stress situations. And we just have to kind of take our time as we introduce stress. Sometimes we do it too fast. Sometimes, Todd Edwards and Steve Robinson say that sometimes the watch comes out too quick.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. With that being said, at some point the watch does need to come out because when, time is the enemy, speed is the weapon, right? So there's a place for the watch. My point with stress inoculation is you have to acquire the skill first, and then you have to introduce stress incrementally to get people to be able to function at that high level. So they're not just, trying to survive. So they're not just shutting down. So, they're not saying, oh, we're going to do confidence building today. Shit, that's that's how I think we go about being successful in stress inoculation. And quite honestly, there's a lot of, the old heads out there. They just, the people come out of probie school and they want to turn it up to 10, on their first day in the firehouse. No, man.
Yeah.
No. Start at a 2 and then work your way up. Well, what happens if we get, what can I tell you? I mean, we can argue about this all day long, but one thing that I have a lot of knowledge on is how the human mind works in these high threat situations. And if you just start them at a 10, they're they're never going to do well. And then the other thing that we have to think about is if we introduce too much stress before skill acquisition has truly happened, you get into self-fulfilling prophecy. They struggle with the task. Oh, I failed. So then you go back and you do the task again. Then they fail again. Now, all of a sudden, the third time you go to do it, they're already saying to themselves before they even start, man, I'm going to fail. And they can't do it. So if they have acquired the skill and the skill is solid and we use stress incrementally, we give them the chance to win. And then they get another win. And then they get a third win. And now as they compile wins, then we can make it a little more difficult. And I think that's the way you are successful in using stress inoculation.
I love it. Yeah.
The other thing you have to do is really understand what you're doing. What you're doing. And I go off on the whole wire box thing. The little tangle box that we put people in. Okay, so what do? You just stick people in there. And 5 people stand there and laugh at the person who's struggling. Well, let's think about this entire exercise. Number one, in the real world, if I'm crawling along and I'm safe, now all of a sudden I'm tangled up.
Back up.
What should I do? Back up. Exactly. But when we do these wire box exercises, do we tell people that? We get these brand new people and we say, okay, this is how you have to do it, navigate, get on your back, swim, do whatever. Well, if we don't tell them, if we don't talk to them about what we just said, if they get tangled up in something, what are they going to do? They're not going to back up. They're going to turn over on their back and they're going to try to swim. Well, Robert
Maris did a really good job with training about that. And when he does his Mayday mindset, he really does a great job with drilling at home of, look, I'm teaching you a skill in case this happens. If you were to come across wires, don't go into the fucking wires, back out. And he talks about that in great detail. And that was the first instructor that for a conference that I took, that he really took the time to explain to the group, because you have a lot of young people that go into these conferences, and for someone like Rob to break it down and say, look, this is actually life endangerment here. We're not telling you to go towards something that's going to kill you and wrap you up like that. I'm teaching you the skills in case something drops on top of you, but this is not real life. You nail it, Chief. And we need to do a better job. We're starting to do better, but to understand that, hey, we're teaching you those skills. We're not telling you to go and get yourself wrapped up in a spider web.
He and I talk about this. I mean, I know Rob. I'm friends with him. He and I talk about this stuff on a regular basis. The other thing that drives me crazy, and this is on fire chiefs. This is totally on fire chiefs. If you tell people to carry wire cutters in their pocket, then you have to allow them to cut the wires in the wire box. Okay. That means you've got to build, instead of building one, you got to build 4 of them. Okay. That means you got to have a whole bunch of extra wire. And when you do this training, you got to bring a couple people in on overtime. So somebody goes through the box, they use the wire cutters. We move that one out of the way. The 2 overtime guys restring it. And then we just send the next guy through that second box. And then we got a third one and a fourth one. Because here's the problem. If we tell people to carry wire cutters in their pocket and we never give them the opportunity to practice that in training, it's 100%. A false sense of security. I mean, if we're not going to let them practice the skill then we're better off saying don't carry the wire cutters at all, because all we do is give
you got to
them a
train
false
your
sense of
dexterity
security.
to do it.
The other
Yeah,
thing-
100%. I've been through so many of those trainings where I've never taken my cutters out and actually ever cut anything. And, they scream at you, right? Like, do not cut those wires because I don't want to restring it. And you're 100% accurate. Even just the practice of removing it out of your pocket, right? Just that motion when you're on your stomach,
Exactly.
that takes some practice, right? You got to calm yourself down. You've got the audio, you've got you're breathing heavy, you're kind of nervous and kind of scared, and now you got to retrieve your cutters and then actually use your cutter and find out where you're stuck. And that's stressful, like you just talked about stress inoculation. If we're not training them of actually how to move your body to do that, they're never going to get to do it. And when the time comes, God forbid, they're not going to know how to retrieve it out of their pocket. And honestly, the IFF firefighter survival course, they do a really good job with that. They do. That's part of the training, and they have you take your cutters out wherever you put them in your pocket. They don't want you to move them. It's whatever your gear is set up as. Now cut that wire that's stuck on you. See how well that works for you. That was so important to see that, because there's a lot of people that come out of the academy and they go into the fire service and they've never ever used their cutters for anything other than just put them in their pocket.
Yeah. I mean, we're just setting them up. We're setting people up for failure. Another thing that drives me absolutely crazy, is a lot of portable radios now have the emergency button, the red emergency button. Okay, so when you put people in the wire box, do you have them push the button and call Mayday right away? Okay, because you should, because if you get tangled up in wires, that's a Mayday situation. But 99% of the time they say, well, don't do that because the dispatchers don't want to listen to the horn going off. Well, if I don't do that in training, and I mean, I got these new probies, brand new in my firehouse, I'm training them. 9 months down the road, they get tangled up in one of these situations. If I haven't allowed them to push that button and give their Mayday in training, they are not going to do it. When they're in condition black in a situation where they know they could very well die. Okay, so the only way they're going to use that button is if I let them do it in training. So I tell people, listen, these radios nowadays have got like 120 channels in them. For Christ's sakes, program the weather channel on the C bank in position 1 and use that in training, so that when the Mayday occurs, they can hit the emergency button and on the weather frequency or some off frequency or whatever. So you don't have to listen to the dispatchers complain about the horn going off. Quite honestly, what I would say to the dispatch supervisor is, listen, your people need to hear the horn going off so you know what it is. Because if you never hear it, then all of a sudden it goes off.
Or just involve them in that drill, right?
So
like they can push the button, do the Mayday, and then the dispatcher can be a part of that Mayday, and everyone's getting trained at the same time. We don't do that enough with our dispatchers. I know up here we don't do it enough, and I've been a big proponent of that, is that we need to do more Mayday drills involving our dispatchers and using our panic button and having the dispatchers retrieve a Mayday and signal out a Mayday, and what are you going to do next? And I think it's super important that we involve them in that.
So the dispatchers will be a critical link in the chain of survival
100%.
if there is a Mayday. For them to recognize that, for them to, and then the other thing, now, another, the rabbit hole right next door is we need to give the dispatch center a procedure. If there is a Mayday, you do this. Okay. So if I'm the incident commander and there's a Mayday, I don't have to tell dispatch to transmit the next alarm, give me 2 additional EMS units, give me an EMS supervisor, give me a second cascade, mobile cascade, whatever, put a helicopter on standby, give me the police watch commander, and make notification to the fire chief and senior staff. I don't have to tell them to do all that, because we have agreed what our internal procedure is, and we've shared it with them, and we've trained the dispatch center. So as soon as they hear Mayday, they're 100%. Doing that right away. So by the time I respond to the Mayday, they're calling me back saying, second alarm's en route. We have them staging at the corner of Elm and Main. Do you want anything different? because we've included them in both the procedures and in the
Yep.
training. And if we're just leaving this for chance, oh, well, we've got a checklist. I believe in them, but still, is it actually going to work? Because the Mayday is going to happen when the acting battalion
Yes.
chief's working. It's not going to be the most senior shift commander. It's going to be an acting battalion chief who has not commanded a whole bunch of fires as it is. Now he's got to work and fire with a Mayday. And as senior staff, we have an obligation to start wargaming this stuff, saying, hey, listen, if we get a Mayday, it's going to be an acting battalion chief who doesn't have a lot of experience. So how do we make sure that they are prepared to mitigate this situation? So then we have to look at what we're doing in terms of our command team training to make sure that, and I don't use it as a derogatory term, but make sure that lowest common denominator, the most junior acting battalion chief, is prepared to handle the initial phases of a Mayday. And I said that to I always said that to my officers. Listen, your job is to prepare your acting officer to go to the worst fire this fire department's ever going to have when you're off. If you do that, you've checked all the boxes.
Yep.
I'm good with you. And I think, if we go back to culture and mindset, when we start having these conversations like this, when I start talking to my acting battalion chiefs, to my acting officers, when I start talking to my step-up engineers, hey, look, man, you're step-up engineer. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen. The first day, the first working fire you ever drive to, you're going to be the first due engine at a free alarm fire, and you're going to be in the reserve room.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yep.
And when we build out our training, when we build out our test books, when we build out our expectations and everything else, we need to start to take that tact in figuring out how we're going to develop these people. And if we do, we're going to make some really strong people who are very, very capable.
Fantastic, Chief. Yeah. So, I mean, again, that all came down to stress inoculation. I mean, that the stress inoculation also comes down to the chief officer as well, right? How you can, I mean, that's a lot of stress, right? Like you've got everything coming at you at all angles, commanding the scene, the radio in your ear, people coming up to the car, asking 1,000 questions. How are you going to handle all of that all at once? And that's a lot of stress. That's years of preparing your mind to be able to filter things out. Honestly, let's talk about it real quick. How did you, as a chief officer, how did you prepare yourself to handle that kind of stress of handling a command scene where you have just everybody needing an answer from you all at once?
So I think one of the best things that happened to me is when I was a young captain. We went to, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. I was a young captain. We went to a motor vehicle accident with entrapment, and I really, man, I did a horrible job, man. I kind of lost my cool. I yelled, I made some bad calls. So when we got back to the firehouse, one of the firemen, pulled me to the side and said, hey, look, Cap, when we get into stuff like this, we're depending on you to come up with solutions. We're dependent on you to stay grounded and give us direction. And you didn't do it. You did a lousy job out there.
Wow.
And that stayed with me. And I always thought, like, all right, man, that was a bad scene on my part. And I can never let the people down that I'm leading again, and that's what the guy said, man, you totally let us down, man. We had a lot of faith in you and you blew it. You really blew it on that run. And from that day on, I started working real hard, and, I never had it happen again. So I always, flashed back to that and held myself to a standard. Now, there are a couple other things that I would do is like, when I was making a run, and I talk about this in one of my lectures, we got dispatch saying, listen, we're getting multiple calls on this. Got PD on the scene, we got whatever, man. I just take my foot off the gas, roll the window down, take a deep breath. I'm going to take 5 seconds off my response. Is it going to make a difference? Probably not. But that was the physical action that I took to reset. And then the other thing that I always used is I can only solve one problem at a time.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's human beings. There's a misconception that we can multitask. You cannot multitask in the conscious mind. You can transfer physical tasks to the subconscious mind where you don't have to think about it because the neural pathways are hardwired to make that action instinctive and reflexive. But you can't multitask in the conscious mind. You can only do one thing at a time. And I always said to myself as an incident commander, what's the most important problem right now? Okay. And I take that information in and I make a decision and all this other type of stuff. Hang on a minute. Deal with this.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got? And that's the way that I would try,
You're
to manage
triaging
it.
The tasks at hand.
And yeah. I always tried to slow radio traffic down. You get a lot of traffic on the radio. Somebody calls command, and what I do, and I still do this today when I do training. Command's answering, go ahead with the message, 31. Because now I kind of slow everybody down. Okay, I get this guy hyped up, and I go ahead. And now and what happens is it just builds one on the other. So I always make a point to be very monotone and very commands answering 31, go with the message. You give him a second to slow down. I hardly ever raise my voice, but if I see something really sideways, I'll raise my voice. And the people that work with me know when they hear that, it's like, something's going on. So everybody perks up. And I very rarely use first names on the radio. I always use like Division 1 or Baseman or whatever. But when I really want to get somebody's attention, because I'm working in small organizations, I know who everybody is. I use their first name. Hey, Jimmy. And when they heard that, it's like, oh. And those are all little things that I use to kind of take as much control of the event as I possibly could.
Wow, that totally makes sense, Chief. I love it. That's great advice. Talk about the importance of the playbook. What do you got on that?
Well, I just, I hear people say, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. Like, what do you mean you figure it out when you get there? What are you talking about? I mean, now certainly there's a couple things about the playbook. There's always going to be the one-off. Okay, I get it. We solve problems for a living. And I don't want people to do things because that's what the playbook says. I want them to understand the why. But, what's our playbook? If we get a working single family dwelling fire, what's the playbook? What are we going to do? What's our actions on? How does this work? We prioritize fire attack and search as close to being simultaneously as we can. What are the opportunities that the fire gives us that we're going to try to exploit? I'm friends with Justin McWilliams, man. I mean, they got a good system out there. I mean, when I assign a company to search. Okay, that's all I tell them. Okay, I want the boss and the members of the company making their decisions. How are we going to do this? What are we going to prioritize? Where's the fire? What do the windows tell us? Is the fire at the bedrooms or is it the other end of the house? If the fire's at the bedrooms, if the fire's at the other end of the house, let's get to the bedrooms. Let's use the windows. Let's penetrate those spaces. I mean, our folks, when they would do VES, we're always going out into the hallway if we can. I want you to look out in the hallway. I want you to listen to the tactical channel. What's the playbook say? Well, the playbook says that if I go through a window and I hear on the tactical band they got water on the fire, I'm going to extend past the initial room. Okay. If they don't have water on the fire, then I've got to think about how I'm going to do that. But these are all things that we put into the playbook so that we don't have to try to make the decision. If we're making the decisions at 3:00 in the morning, we open the door to making bad decisions. But if some of the decisions have already been made, and these are the criteria that we're looking for, man, if I'm on the number 2 floor and I'm searching a bedroom and I hear, hey, man, we got water on the fire, and I don't hear command coming back right away saying no, man, I'm extended. Okay. I'm on the second floor. I'm in a single family dwelling. The hallway runs right down the middle. The rooms run off of it. If I get in a jam, if I find a door and I get into a room, I close the door behind me. I'm in a room that's got a window to the exterior. I'm not overly concerned. Now, that's not the same approach I take if I'm in a 400,000 square foot warehouse, but because we've hammered all these things out ahead of time and they're in the playbook, I know what the playbook says, and I know basically what the playbook is doing is it's giving me my left and right limits. I know go, and I know what actions to take, and that's why I think a playbook is very
Do you think
important.
of the playbook also including SOPs and SOGs, or is it a playbook is okay?
Sure, yeah, and your SOPs could very well be your playbook, but just have you really hammered them out so that everybody knows what
Yeah,
they're going to do? You know, I mean, I've gone in agencies before and I've looked at their SOPs and I go like, what are these? Well, we just downloaded a copy from so and so and we just changed the letterhead so that
sure.
we would have them. I go, well, is anybody really using them? Well, not really. We figure it out when we get there. It's like, no, time out. No. I mean, that's what, I mean, you're going in for hip replacement surgery and the surgeon's walking down the hallway reading the instruction manual, right? Like you're going to
Yeah,
tolerate that? We're the fire department. We go to fires. We should have a good comprehensive plan, not 28 pages, single space typing, because that's useless. Just some
yeah.
bullets and a plan on what we're going to do. And then, we look at our district. What are we going to? I mean, are we going to residential fires? Are we going to garden apartments? I mean, what are we doing? What are we dealing with? Do we have to revise our playbook because now we have
Yeah.
McMansions? And these are the things that we should be engaging on a regular basis to make sure that we've got as much done on the front end so that when we do get the curveball, it's like, okay, we don't have to figure out everything. We look at it like, okay, it's an outlier. So now we can address the particulars.
100%, Chief. I love it. Yeah, the playbook is all of it, and it's your pre-planning, it's your SOPs, it's your SOGs, and it's previous calls as well. What worked, what didn't work, what you need to improve on, and you compose that and bring it together and be ready for game day.
The best example that I know of is if you'll do a Google search, go to Leesburg, Florida. Go to the city website, go to the fire department page on the website, and there's a tab that says playbook. Click on that, and you can download a PDF version of their playbook. And they've worked all this out, first due, second due, third due, all the different type of incidents they go to, the riding positions, what the positions are responsible for. And what I tell people is you're not Leesburg, Florida, but download this thing and then mark it up and use it as a template to build a playbook for your organization, because most of the work's already been done by them. Now it's just plug and play, making it fit you. And it gives you a real good idea of what a well-written playbook
That's what I love about the
looks
fire
like.
service. It's operational strategies and tactics. It's no secret. It's not like they have a book that they keep to themselves and nobody else can enjoy it. It's out there, and they want other departments love talking about their departments and what works for them. And if it makes them a success on the fire ground, they're going to share that and make the other fire departments better. I do truly believe that that's part of that brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service. Is it's out there for everybody. I mean, look at FDNY, right? I mean, all their tactics, everything is out there, PDF files. They want people to succeed. Other departments want other departments to succeed. You're not taking away from anything. And I love the fact that you just mentioned that. Like it's out there. Use it. Obviously give credit where credit is due, but use it.
So the FDNY, they're training tips. They come out with a book every year, training tips. It's all open source on the internet. And if you don't have the links, email me and I'll send you the thing. Okay. Join
Resurrection.
Engine Company.
Yeah, man, I love that
Resurrection.
page. Kyle does a great job. It's listed with amazing educate. I use it, Chief. I use it all the time when I have new people. Actually, I was just training a new guy yesterday, and he's like, where do you get all this knowledge, and how can I find things? Can you send me some things? I go, sign up for Engine Resurrection, go to that Facebook page, go to the files section, and you're going to get all the information that you could possibly think of. It's right there at your fingertip. You can download it. And if there's something you don't know, or if there's something you don't see, just type in that question, and you're going to get 100 of people just blowing your mind with all the answers. And it's all there. And that's the fire service. And, it's there for us to be better. So we don't have to read line of duty deaths, and we don't have to read about people not having that information. It's there. And I love that Kyle does that. And he runs a great page. And I love that you brought that up, because it's one of my main sources, and it's great reading material in there too. It's not just, what nozzle works with this. There's some old books in there that have some great knowledge that he has taken the time to scan in and then post it.
Yeah.
And that takes a considerable amount of time, and you don't have to go spend $500. I mean, I've looked them up on eBay. Some of the books there, they're expensive because they're old, they're antiques, and you can't find them anymore. And they're right there, and for us to use.
One of Kyle's best quotes is that it's not 1981 when you have to wait for knowledge to come to your mailbox once a month.
Yeah.
It's not. It's all out there, man. I mean, I've got a Google Drive, man. I got tons of stuff, man. I share it with guys. I've got a group of battalion chiefs that I'm mentoring, man. I send them stuff. It's all out there. It's all over the place. If you say you don't know, then you're actually
right. Have you done your work, right? Like, you can say, I don't know what you want, but how did you try? Because again, it's right at our fingertips. Did you actually even try to find the answer, or just saying flat out, I don't know? Once, like you said, that is just being lazy and not trying to find an answer for yourself. It's the 21st century. You don't have to go far to find an answer anymore. Well, actually, that brings up to,
I tell guys, I said, okay, let me see your phone. Because I know how to go in there and look at your scrolling history. So you don't know? You don't have time? Oh, really? Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Well, that brings up to leadership. Honestly, I think that helps, of being a good leader, of helping guys to find an answer, helping them to be better, leading the crew, being a positive role model. What's your takes on leadership?
So I think a couple things is, I think leaders need to set expectations. And it's just like in building that culture, man. I always set expectations. Every rank that I had, I set expectations in writing for the people I was leading. And I would tell them, listen, this isn't about a tool that I can use to jam you up. This is about me putting you in the position to be successful. And how can you expect people to be successful if they don't know what's expected of them? So, and I think, that's an approach. In terms of leadership, you got to be a positive person, man. Positive energy begets positive energy. Negative energy begets negative energy. If you're a negative person, you're never going to be able to lead people. So setting expectations, being that positive person, set expectations. I model those behaviors back, and I hold people accountable. If I set expectations for you, then I've got to live up to them too. I use this example all the time. Wear your gear. So when I got out of my car as a chief, I put my gear on. Just that simple. Did I ever have to talk to people about not wearing gear? As a battalion chief, one time in 10 years. Set expectations, model behaviors, and then hold people accountable. And that one time, I saw it. And I called guys over. I said, hey, send your boss over here. Okay. Let me tell you, hey, look, LT, if your company ever shows up like that again, you're going to be in the chief's office explaining why we shouldn't demote you, because expectations have been set, and that's what it is. So when you do these things, and that accountability part is very important. Because if you see it and you say, it's not a big deal, I don't remember, now it happens again. Now all of a sudden, the fourth time you say, man, I finally have to do something. Well, you've lost your credibility because of the other 3 times you let it go. So I think those are all the things that are important in leadership. And what I tell aspiring officers is, are you willing to have the hard conversations?
That's a tough one.
Because if you're not willing to do that,
Yeah.
Don't promote. Every promotion ceremony, and that's, once again, I say this all the time. I have never gone to a promotion ceremony and saw the people getting sworn in that had a gun held to their head. You said you wanted to be an officer. Okay.
Yeah.
You chose this. So now that you chose this path, this is part of your job. I want to make sure you know that before you enter into the promotional process. But this is what being a leader is. You've got to be the boss. Now, that doesn't mean you're a tyrant, doesn't mean that you're a slave driver,
Yeah.
but you got to be the boss. And being the boss means that you're going to set expectations, model behaviors, and
If you're a
hold
reluctant
people
officer, you're a
accountable.
reluctant leader.
So,
right. I mean, that's 100%.
absolutely.
I mean, if you have somebody who's on the fence on everything, they're going to be on fence on decision making, and they're going to be on the fence of actually how to talk to people. And you need to be upfront and honest. And I mean, if we hear it so many times that being a leader, you're not going to make friends. You have to be prepared to step in a role where you're not going to have as many friends. You have to almost cut ties. You can still be respectful. You can still be their ear, and their shoulder, but you've got to be that person to be ready to have those strong talks with them. Like you said, like pulling that lieutenant over and saying, hey, next time we're going to have a serious conversation about not having gear. It's not tough. It's not easy. It's a tough job for sure.
So, I say to people, if they really were your friends, they wouldn't put you in the position where you had to speak to them. And on the occasions that, because nobody's perfect, everybody has a bad day. And on the occasions that happens, they'll look at you and say, hey, boss, you're right, man. That one's on me. Okay? If they don't do those two things, they weren't really your friends to start with. They didn't really care about you. They really didn't respect you. They were just being nice to you so that they could take advantage of you down the road. And that's, what it comes down to. I mean, quite honestly, I've got some very, very close friends. I was their boss, and they knew, hey, business was business. And, if we strayed, then I'd always, hey, come on back. But at the end of the day, we still had close relationships because we worked together for a long time, man. We were on busy companies. I was the boss. They were firefighters. I mean, we got into a lot of gnarly shit. And over the course of time, you build those relationships. But, when something happened where I had to be the boss and I said, hey, man, they said, hey, I get it. Man, that one's on me, bro. It won't happen again.
So
that's what your friends
you're
are.
absolutely 100%, Chief. Your friends are going to respect you in those positions, and they're going to know that you're going to have a tough job, and they're going to want to help you, not make you work harder. And that's where it comes down to, is that if they respect you in that new position, they're going to try to make your job easy, not difficult. Because like what they say, right? I'm a captain, but don't make me be a captain, right? Don't make me be the chief.
So I tell guys too, don't put yourself in a position where I can't defend you. Don't do it. So the policy says that we have to wear our badge shirts when we go to the grocery store. Oh, that sucks, and that's ridiculous, and that's that. Bro, that's what the policy says. That's what the policy says. If you don't like the policy, when the chief leaves, apply for his job, become the chief, and change the policy. But right now, that's what it says. Well, they're making a big deal about it. Well, quite honestly, it seems to me that you're making the big deal about it. They wrote the policy, and this is what they want. Now they're going off to do 10 other things, and you're sitting here stewing about having to put your damn shirt on. Put your shirt on and get over it. Because at the end of the day, when you walk into the grocery store and you don't have your shirt on, what do you think's going to happen? I'm going to get jammed up, and then they're going to make me jam you up because you didn't follow what the damn policy says. However you feel about it, that's what it says. So don't put me in a position where I can't 100%. Defend you.
Yeah, I love it, Chief. Real quick, how did you get into the conference world? I meant to ask you that earlier, and it just dawned on me, and I never really asked about that. You did so much stuff in your life, and now you've met so many amazing people, and you have so many friends now from just pretty much traveling over US of these conferences. And how did you get involved? What was like your first experience with that?
Well, in all honesty, there's two people that really kind of opened the door for me. Harold Reinwald opened the door for me when he was running FD Tactics. I met him at a conference. I was just kind of there. We started having some conversations, and he said, hey, I like your approach. I like what you think. And I said, well, if you ever need anybody, and he, opened the door and he gave me a couple shots. And then Kurt Isaacson with County Fire Tactics. I mean, I met him. I knew him through social media. I met him when he came to the Lake of the Ozarks for the first Revolutionary Fire Tactics, and we just kind of stayed in touch, and things developed, and he invited me down here one time to speak at a CFT event, and that just kind of started it, and from there it just kind of grew on its own. But I really got to acknowledge those two guys because they're the ones that opened the door and put me in that position. And then Jason Hoverman from Engine House Training in Missouri, he had me on a podcast when I was the chief in Sunrise Beach, Missouri. And it's one of the first podcasts that I was ever on. And then once again, that kind of, led from one thing to another. And then you just start meeting people and shaking hands and saying, hey, I'm Dennis Reilly. And, I met Sean Duffy. I meet Dave Mellon. I meet Clyde Gordon. I meet Mo Davis. I meet Chief Lieb. I meet these people and they just open doors. So that's how it happened. So I would tell people, if you want to go that route, I think the most important thing is to have a message. What's your message? What are you going to say? What is it that you want to get out there? And when you refine that message, just start talking to people. And then all of a sudden you're going to connect with somebody who opens the door. But you got to be ready to walk through the door, which means you got to have that message. You got to have those concepts well defined.
That's awesome. That's a great message, Chief. I have a lot of those conversations with people about what I'm doing and other people that are trying to break into it. And that's the big thing, is having something that you can stick to, and being ready to either hit record or to walk through that door and present your message and be able to speak clearly and be able to deliver it to the masses. And I mean, we're pretty good as firefighters sniffing out the bullshit or talking out of your ass. They're going to find out real quick, and they're going to walk out that door and never look back. And obviously what you're doing, you're spreading the right message. Obviously we all know you're not full of shit, and that you walk the walk and talk the talk. And again, it's awesome knowing you, and the times we spent together at some conferences. It's funny because we don't even communicate the conferences we're going to. We just happen to meet up at certain ones and run into each other. So that's been pretty good. Anything on the docket currently that you're going to be going to that you wanted to share or talk about?
I've got a bunch of stuff. Next week I'm going to be up on Pensacola Beach with CFT. I'm going to the Orlando Fire Conference. I'm going to Baltimore. I'm going to be at the Key City Conference. I'm going to be back at the Great Lakes this year, helping out. I'm just trying to think whatever. I'm going to be at FDIC. I'm going back to firemanship this year for my 8-hour workshop. So that's what I can think of off the top of my head. And then I've like we were talking about prior, I've got a couple agencies that I'm talking to, and I'm always looking to kind of cultivate that side of the business where, I can, connect with the fire department and come in and do, things exclusively for them. It gives me more of an opportunity to really kind of expand on concepts and spend some time and develop stuff.
Always keeping busy. You're always moving, always shaking.
Trying to.
There's no slowing you down. That's great. And you know what I love too is when I've seen you at conferences, you always have your beautiful wife with you. You guys have a great relationship, and we definitely don't say it enough, is that we have such a great support system of having our wives or significant others being there. We wouldn't be able to do what we do if we didn't have the support of them, leaving town for a week or 2 weeks and, just being all over the place and either answering emails or texts. And it takes a lot, and takes a lot away from your family. And that's that sacrifice, and having your significant other to support you and understand this is your passion and this is what you love to do. We couldn't do it without them.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere near, where I am if A.N. wasn't, here for the ride with me. She just makes it happen. She really does. So I can never say,
absolutely.
thank you enough.
So thank you to A.N. for for sharing, letting her share you to the world. And we really appreciate it. And I thank you to C.A.N. for letting me take an hour and a half of your time away from her and your day. And I really appreciate you being on here, Chief. It's been an utmost pleasure.
Thank you. I mean, I've enjoyed it. I hope people find value in it, and it's just making it better
100%.
than we found it. So
yeah,
that's all it's about.
Well, thank you so much, Chief Dennis Reilly. He's going to be making his rounds like he just talked about. If you ever need to get a hold of Chief Reilly, he is very good on his social media, so you can text him, you can message him on Facebook, Instagram. He's very responsive, and he's here for the cause. He's here to help others. He's here to help spread positivity in our world of the fire service and first responders. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions that you might have, and anything for you need motivation, inspiration, support. He's been around, so he knows a couple of things. A day or two. Well, thank you so much again, Chief. This is Firefighter Stickers, Mike Goldstein of the C.A.N. Report. Thank you so much for everybody for sticking around and listening to us. I thank you all, and thank you for your support. Mazel tov.
Stay well.